Due to some technical difficulties, part of our discussion just didn't get recorded, so we're going to give a brief overview of what we discussed on and what our opinions were, and then we're going to move on to finish the discussion about that anyway. So, we were just talking about Michael L. Kramer, the defendant's testimony, and the part that got cut off from his testimony was the bit about a permit being required and a first come first served provision being a bad idea, according to him. And I disagreed with that simply because of the fact that he is assuming that it's going to be misused and therefore does not want it. And it's true that it's been misused in the past in other contexts with other people in other situations with other motivations. But you can't really assume like that something is going to happen simply because it has the possibility to happen, and that 100% does not warrant the changing of a law. Like the example that I used was if there was a gun sitting on a table, it should be illegal for that gun to be on the table because someone could pick it up and shoot someone with it. Like that's the same reasoning that he's using for this, and I take issue with that because I don't think that. And we all agreed that that reasoning wasn't good enough. So our consensus was that Kramer's entire testimony was very good and very credible up until the first come first served provision issue that he took with it, because you cannot prosecute on potential.
Then we were moving on to Brandon Broomfield, and we were just in debate about his intentions of fighting back and whether his testimony is credible or not. So we can just kind of repeat what we said, because we haven't really reached a consensus.
For someone who was there and to be testifying against the city itself with Kramer, who seems to be very well educated and very good at laying out his arguments for the most part, he's very, very vague in what he's saying, and that's not a good thing, especially for someone who was actually there and who could provide so much detail. If he was there at the heart of it, and a random onlooker who got injured was more specific and less vague than the guy who was actually in the heart of it, that might, and it may just be that he's not that much of a talker, or he's not got that much of a way with words. We don't know that sort of thing, but it is possible that it calls some sort of motivations into question about why he's being so vague about things, and that's taking a lot of leaps with logic, but it just demonstrates that the vagueness is definitely a problem.
For the most part, I thought that his intentions of fighting back were because, and for the sole reason of that he was initially assaulted by counter demonstrators.
And we discussed that counter demonstrators could also, police officers could be part of the counter demonstrators, like grouping, because police officers were assaulting them as well. Because I know we talked about how here he says counter demonstrators, but it also lists in the, I forgot what it's called, but the other area that the police, he was beat by the police, not counter demonstrators, so we were putting them in the same category.
Yeah, one of the
assuming the plan, whatever that is.
Yeah, one of the discrepancies that I pointed out was that he says counter demonstrators instead of police, which is vague for no real reason. It could have just been a slip of the mind or something, or he just didn't feel like saying police or something.
Like puts them all in the same category
because
they're either against them.
Yeah, but it's also a really weird way to put it, because if he was assaulted by police when he was defending himself, you'd think he would specifically say police.
Yeah.
Even though there were onlookers assaulting them as well.
Yeah.
So the vagueness, I think, is his biggest problem in his testimony, and I'm not sure if we can consider what he's saying to be 100% credible because of it.
If he would have gave more of a testimony and would have been more descriptive, I would believe it all. But the only part that I believe is him getting assaulted first and him fighting back, because if we were all in the same predicament, we would all do the same thing he would have did. Well, that he did. So if he would have been more descriptive for his testimony, I'd be more on his side.
Yeah. And two of the other things I take issue with in his thing are, he says, I can say without qualification that none of the demonstrators provoked violence. He's the only one saying that.
Yeah.
So,
he can't speak for that
yeah,
big of a crowd.
He's the only witness for that, so I think that can be disregarded. And our mere presence seemed to be enough excuse for counter demonstrators to attack us. He's just dramatizing at that point, I think.
I think at that point it is. I agree with you because Violet Jones, although she did say it was peaceful, she did say they were noisy, so it could have been the noise that was causing that. But again, I don't think if you're going to have 10,000 people, it's not going to be silent.
Even if they're talking at a
Yeah.
regular thing, 10,000 people is going to be decently loud.
So
10,000 people is basically the size of this town.
Yeah.
That's all of Monmouth protesting.
That's gonna be pretty loud.
Yeah, it is.
So again, I don't think it was just presence, but I do believe that they were being peaceful because 3 people have testified that.
Yeah.
Including one that was not part of the
Exactly.
Yeah. And
demonstration.
the police officer even said that it was peaceful up until a point, and he was the one who arrested Mr. Kramer. So I think, I don't know, is there anything relevant or useful, or I don't know if credible is the right way to say it. But
Yeah, definitely not.
Useful or relevant from Brandon's
I feel like the
testimonial.
only thing is that he was part of it, and he's saying that he was attacked, and like
First.
that's like pretty much just like what he's saying, like, and then that he's saying that it was people, but that's just him voicing. It's not like a.
I think the parallelisms between his and Violet's are what we can keep.
Yeah.
So onlookers started it. It was peaceful,
Yeah.
and there was a fight in
Like
reaction to the onlookers
Yes,
starting
that
it.
started.
We can definitely take that it was a peaceful demonstration as further confirmation from his, but I don't think we can take much of anything else.
Yeah,
I
if
agree.
10,000 people marching is not peaceful, it's gonna be a big problem.
Oh yeah, definitely. So that's it for the defense. So
We
now
have about 40 minutes of evaluating the evidence.
that means we can, for the last 5 minutes to 20 minutes, reach our consensus based on the evidence that we all decided upon was relevant and credible and what wasn't. So, let's see. Actual steps, because this is all just stuff about don't be mean to one another, don't call each other poop heads, all that. Discuss all concerns, did that. Okay,
So I
so
think we
there's
just
no
need
real
to see
steps,
where
so.
we stand.
Yeah, there's no real steps written down, so I think we should just go around in a circle and give what all of our opinions are on the thing, just like we had written down for our steps, and we can discuss our opinions and dispute each other if needed, and then we will reach our consensus. So who wants to start with our opinions?
Yes, I can. I'm siding with Michael Kramer, of course. I feel like you should be allowed I feel like there should be restrictions, but not different restrictions, I guess. I feel like freedom of speech is a big deal.
Go ahead.
You're fine. I'm going to completely stand on that freedom of speech should be available. I mean, even if someone disagrees, that's the whole point of freedom of speech, is to be able to dispute that. And you have to have somewhere to take out your anger. Not saying that the protests should be violent, because they shouldn't be, but if you really feel strongly about something, you don't have a way to express yourself, that could also cause problems, like, in the long run, like stress, and those things can become violent eventually if you don't have a way to let out your anger or, voice yourself. And if you're restricted on that, that can only make you more angry on top of, like, many other things.
There's a specific quote I'm looking up about that matches.
You can go on, Mike.
I'm gonna agree with you, Allison. I think that the ordinance is unlawful, and I guess my biggest concern with it is if you look at all the ordinances, or all the parts of the ordinances, they're not matching up with the intentions. Like,
Mhm.
if you want peace, then your ordinance should say no weapons. Your ordinance should say no
Exactly.
picket signs,
Mm-hmm.
no, I don't know, just keeping things, I guess,
Yeah.
peaceful, no violence, no slander, things like that, as opposed to the aspects of this ordinance which limits how many people can talk and where they can talk
And when.
and when.
all that
Those are
stuff.
all things encroaching the freedom of speech,
Yeah.
not the safety of citizens.
Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. John F. Kennedy.
Cool.
Beautiful.
So,
Ron and Sean.
Sounds good.
you want to go or me?
I'll be last.
All right. I definitely side with Kramer. I think that he presented the most valid, not only the most valid and credible arguments, but I feel like his points were by far the most reasonable and most well researched. The police officer wasn't really at fault in any way. He was just doing his job and following the orders that he was instated to follow. But I feel like the ordinance in itself is actually limiting what it seeks to do, based on Michael's points, simply because the ordinance was established and it sought to protect people from violence. But in this way, it's inspired Michael's protest, which turned out to be a violent one in the end, thanks to the onlookers and everything, of 10,000 people that happened illegally. It inspired that to happen because someone disagreed with it. But would that situation have been handled better if there was a 10,000 person protest that turned violent, regardless of what the protest was over? If the city had decided to, instead of trying to limit protest sizes to being 1,000 each, had called in police from other cities, had called in the National Guard, and all these other things. So I feel like, in a way, the ordinance contradicts what it tries to do, simply because it makes it easier for large amounts of violence to happen, because it's the city essentially saying, okay, here's the limit, we're not going to try any more than this. It's your responsibility to not make us be in a situation where we would have to try more than this. So I am 100% backing Kramer on this, because I feel like the ordinance is unjust in every way that is not a first come, first served provision.
Me, on the other hand, I'm gonna have to disagree with you guys. JK, I agree as well. I
was
agree
like,
as
this will be
well.
fun.
If anything, the ordinance could have been reworded better. Like, basically how everybody said. Kramer states some good points and some credible points. And the people, Violet and Brandon,
Yeah.
who were hurt in the accident, they believed in what they were doing, and other than that, I believe that Kramer believed what he was doing too, and the ordinance did not ordinance. Yeah, it was going against freedom of speech, and that's just one right that we should all have, no matter what country we're in. And I believe that Michael Kramer's going to win this.
All right, so we seem to be unanimous. I guess the verdict that we'll be presenting to this totally real, 100% not hypothetical, totally not just four of us in a room in the bottom of the library court, is in favor of Michael Kramer. So I believe that that's our consensus. We've reached unanimous in favor of Kramer.